The Solar Podcast is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Today on the Solar Podcast, we continue our journey into rapid shutdown and solar system fire safety. My guest today is Joe Covington. He is the General Manager for North America for IMO Automation, makers of the FireRaptor. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Tim, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to sitting down with you.
Well, thanks for making time for us. I love the name FireRaptor. Nobody wants a fire on their solar array, so you're the anti-fire solution, presumably. But tell us about IMO and a little bit about your background and how you got into the solar industry.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we've got to give a shout out to our marketing team with the name and branding there with the FireRaptor. It certainly stands out, as you mentioned. But yeah, so I've been with IMO now for just over a year and a half. Prior to that, I spent a lot of time in the factory automation space, working for different manufacturers in that realm, different European manufacturers. And then prior to that, I started out in industrial distribution. So I'm very happy to be on board here at IMO. I joined IMO to really work on the market strategy and development here in the U.S. and Canada specifically. So, a little history about the company. We were founded in 1972, primarily, well, I shouldn't say primarily, but headquartered in the UK, just outside of London, and have subsidiaries throughout the world now. So we've been direct in the US market for almost 3 years, so still a relatively newcomer, but deep product offering that's been widely accepted across the globe, and we're known for having a quality product in that respect.
How did the company decide to go after rapid shutdown anyway? It seems like a little bit out of your standard playbook, but yeah, make the connection for us if you would.
Yeah. So Tim, we're an industrial controls company, essentially. We have two different product offerings. We've got our industrial product offerings, we like to classify it, and then we have our product offering specifically for the solar realm. Think of it more as an AC offering versus a DC offering. So about 10 years ago, we started developing DC isolators, DC disconnects, started that transition away, or not away, just to supplement the current offering as the solar realm started to grow. And about 5 to 6 years ago, we saw a need in the space for rapid shutdown. We felt that the products that were being offered in the market, we felt that we could offer a better solution, technologically speaking, and a better application. So that's why we decided to go after the FireRaptor and bring it to market.
For all of the solar professionals out there, of course, you're aware of NEC 2014 and 2017. So if the jurisdictions that you're working in have adopted NEC 2014 or 2017, you have to abide by rapid shutdown rules, and they are just getting basically stricter and stricter. The goal being to give the array either automatic or manual or both controls for first responder safety and fire safety. It's a both and, right? You want the array, if there's an arc fault, if there's something significantly wrong with the array and it's causing a potential hazard, then you want the array to shut down, and that's what these fire codes are meant to do. What are the capabilities of the FireRaptor?
Yeah, so Tim, I'm glad you asked this question. The way that we approach the market and our solution and device is purely from a safety standpoint. So whenever we developed the FireRaptor, we leaned on principles and guidelines that we had seen in play in the factory automation space for, say, the greater part of 50 years. So if you look at how the FireRaptor operates and what makes it unique and what makes it different, first and foremost, it's a solid state switch, right? So loss of power would indicate a rapid shutdown event, essentially. We also have an embedded temperature sensor. to where if you get above 198 degrees Fahrenheit, it will automatically shut down. Obviously, a fire situation. Sometimes we do get general comments or questions related to that, saying, well, these are on rooftops. What if I'm, in the heat of Arizona, for example? Do you ever have, false shutdowns or false trippings and stuff? And the answer to that is no, because it's a fully potted unit, and that temperature sensor is embedded in there. So that temperature would have to be sustained, let's say over a period of 7 to 10 minutes to be able to penetrate the actual FireRaptor and shut it down. So it wouldn't be you wouldn't see that in a false situation. The other way that it shuts down is obviously under manual operation. So if someone was to come up and let's say it's a first responder, or let's just say it's just general system maintenance, they would come up and interact or initiate the emergency shutdown switch, and that would power the system down as well.
Excellent. And I showed a picture of the FireRaptor on the screen. Most installers and developers will be familiar with these module level power electronics. The go-tos in the market are SolarEdge or Tigo, seemingly, and this ecosystem is only going to get bigger as time goes on. So, Joe, what do you suppose is your unique value proposition in this market that is perhaps dominated for sure on the residential side by SolarEdge, but they have quite a share of the commercial market as well. But what is your value proposition?
Yeah, so Tim, I think it's important to kind of tell a story a little bit too. So as you talk about NEC 2014 and NEC 2017, and then you look at what's coming down the line with NEC 2020 and even some of the other future regulations related to that. The world of rapid shutdown, when the first regulations came about, that's what really drove the microinverter market. Is because there was a lot of uncertainty related to string inverters and related to MLPE devices that were in the market. So the market reacted accordingly and went more towards the SolarEdge style and microinverters in general. What we are hoping to do with the FireRaptor is bring a solution to market that does not have to be reliant on the type of string inverter that's being used. And the reason that that's important is because it brings back choice into the market. First and foremost, the FireRaptor is not a module level power electronic device. It is not an MLPE device. There are no power line communications with it, and that is the number one differentiator that we have essentially. Power line communications can create some hurdles out there in the environment that can interfere with your AFCI or interfere with your overall system performance. And it's our belief, and actually, it's what we've seen in the market, that introducing a solid state switch without having any power line communications brings back that situation of choice on the string inverter side.
Yeah. So you mentioned AFCI. What is that?
Yeah, so AFCI is something that all inverters have to have, right? And it's essentially their arc fault circuit interrupters. Arc fault detection is what it is, right? So all inverters are detecting downstream if there's any arc faults. And if they see any arc faults, then the inverter would time out, shut down, anything along those lines, yes.
Got it. And you mentioned the NEC starting with 2014, right? Which began the journey, I guess, for rapid shutdown, and now it's now we're in the 2017 release. There will be a 2020 release as well. Some major jurisdictions here in Illinois are on NEC 2017, including the city of Chicago. Many of the outlying suburbs and jurisdictions are still on older codes, and so it's not an issue. But for installers, what this means is more devices, more connectors, and a more slightly complicated installation. Where do you see fire codes going? Because it's a double edge. We
Mhm.
we want we want rapid shutdown in theory, but we also don't want necessarily a plethora of devices and connectors that, uh, let's face it, the each point of connection is a potential hazard in and of itself. So where is the fire code going, and how do you skate to where the puck is going?
Yeah, so Tim, you bring up some great points there, right? So number one, as you look at the overall market and the expanding market, really what you're talking about is compatibility at the end of the day. Um, are the connectors the proper connectors that are being used? Ours, for example, are original MC4 connectors, um, and does the panel utilize the same thing, right? Are your interconnection points being utilized in the same fashion and manner, or were you potentially introducing more connections that can have arc faults, right? So for us, we do see that we don't see rapid shutdown going away. Even after we look at NEC 2020 and potentially even out to, let's say, 2023 or the next code revision, we don't see it going away. And that's just because as the market grows, you do have to have the safety aspects to support it, right? So to get that general market acceptance, that's an important piece, right? So where I can see the code going more towards is on the compatibility side, right? I can see standardization, let's say on the connectors. We're already starting to see higher hurdles for testing, specifically related to AFCI, and some of the tests, let's say UL or Intertech or the governing bodies in that realm want to see. Which that in itself is interesting because we recently underwent AFCI testing with UL. We were one of the first, or we were the first one to do it because it's just come out, and that will be what we believe adopted in the future codes as well.
Got it. And in that solar power world story, which I'll put in the show notes, you now have UL PVRSS listing.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that and your work with Fronius.
Yeah. So let's talk about PVRSE and PVRSS and our work with Fronius there. So PVRSE is photovoltaic rapid shutdown equipment, and PVRSS is photovoltaic rapid shutdown systems. PVRSS certification is where you have gone and you have tested with that specific group of products from a compatibility standpoint there again, right? For us, what we have seen in the market is that the market feedback, there's the market is so distrusting of devices. They want you to be able to prove that it all works together, and that's no fault of ours, but that's just the state of the greater market. So that's why we went out and got the PVRSS listing, for example, with Fronius. Fronius had approached us a while back, and they were interested in looking at the FireRaptor. They put it up on their test arrays there in Portage, Indiana, and they deemed it to be a very interesting product that they wanted to look at getting a dual or getting a joint certification on. So that's why we decided to go down the PVRSS route and obviously support them in the market. It's a partnership we're very excited about.
Cool. I Yeah, I'm drinking from a fire hose here. I'm no expert on rapid shutdown, but through my conversations with Fronius and others, it
Mhm.
it does seem like the market needs to mature. It's a little bit of the Wild West for installers. We just want safe, reliable installations. Um, and if today we honestly our go-tos are SolarEdge or Tygo. Now there's some questions about Tygo reliability in the market. Um, and we're learning about the FireRaptor. Most of my colleagues have never heard of it, honestly. And so your work with Fronius is very important, and now, of course, being covered by Solar Power World. What do what do developers and installers need to be thinking about? What are the main areas of concern for developers and installers, do you think?
Tim, I think it's two different things, right? So number one, first and foremost, this is a safety device, right? In a situation of a fire, you want it to perform. The last thing that we need is one of our first responders coming into a situation where a rapid shutdown device is not performing, and they think it's a safe environment to enter whenever it's not. So that's number one. But number two, outside of that, you have to look at it from essentially from how you run your own business, right? And what I mean by that is that you have to look at it from an operating and maintaining perspective, a system arrays perspective, whenever you're selecting all your devices that you're going to use in that array. So it's okay, is the device going to perform as a safety device? And then number two, is the device going to perform in a manner that allows me to meet, my output goals, essentially, right? Is it going to allow me to, meet the requirements of my agreement, or as I'm illustrating to that, commercial owner or that homeowner or whoever it may be? And then also, is it going to create a situation to where I'm going to inquire more overhead in servicing the system down the line? So it's a holistic approach that you've got to take it. But, first and foremost, is it a reliable solution? Second piece, is it a compatible solution that functionally is going to work, right? Rapid shutdown cannot hold the market back, right? It has created a lot of noise in the market, has created some shifts. But ultimately, we're talking about one small piece in a solar array that needs to be almost an afterthought, in my opinion. It just needs to work.
Absolutely. And you mentioned connectors. You MC4 is bandied about very loosely, but MC4 is a manufacturer, and connector compatibility is extremely important. Do you have any more comments about that?
Yeah. So it's MC4, as you state, is a manufacturer, right? And to go deeper into it, we use the Staubli connectors. Staubli MC4 connectors is who we use. That was just where the market was at whenever we were developing the FireRaptor, and that's where we've stayed. We've felt that those connectors, the reliability piece of that, we've never had any issues with those. So we've decided to stick with that piece. Now, just on the larger front with connectors in general, it does seem like different PV manufacturers use a wide array of connectors. We ran into it the other day where, an installer came to us and, he's having a question related about compatibility to it, to a specific panel that he was using. It was a different connector. And at that point, we had to step back and say, look, well, we cannot certify that connection because it's not a like for like connection. While it's still under the same umbrella, it's still not a like for like connection. So we err on the side of caution, and essentially that has to be a decision that the installer has to make, or they have to go back to their panel manufacturer and have that discussion at that piece. But we haven't seen that carte blanche by any means. But I do think that just general connection points on, let's say, extensions or whips that are being created in the field, so on and so forth, needs to be a part of the bigger conversation.
Sure. And what about inverter manufacturer? Are you completely neutral on string inverter manufacturer?
We are. So while we obviously have our partnership with Fronius, a little bit about our history in the market, excuse me, and kind of the pull through that we've had in the market. Originally, we started with Outback, being more of an off-grid package solution, but they're a provider that pushed us out. And obviously, we've had Fronius here on the string inverter front, and then to that point, Tim, we've got PVRSS certifications with Fimer now, and also SMA as well.
I didn't catch the name before SMA. What was that?
Oh, Fimer, old
Oh,
ABB.
got it. Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you were king of the solar industry, Joe, what would you change about fire safety codes and approaches to solar safety? I'm just curious.
Man, Tim, you put me on the hot seat there. Uh, king for a day, right? Um, Honestly, I think that all of, there's a lot of, I think the market is very fractured, number one, right? And that's more of indicative of where the market is at from a growth perspective. And what I mean there is that it's more in its infancy, and a lot of the players are still becoming established. A lot of standards are still being established. So industry is undergoing rapid growth. So I would really try and work on bringing together the responsible parties and eliminating a lot of what I would consider like the different factions that are out there. You look at MLPE devices and stuff, and SunSpec, for example, is a good is a good illustration of a committee that was well intentioned, but I think that the industry may have outpaced the need there, right? So SunSpec's more a protocol or communication standard for power line communications that's related to rapid shutdown. I can't help but lean on my own experience in the factory automation realm, where you have multiple protocols. They were all developed under international standards, and they all have their pros and cons, but they all work. Whereas here in the solar industry, you don't have that widely accepted collaborative nature, I guess. It's more of a, hey, let's do it one way, instead of looking at what may be the best way to do it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So SunSpec is wedded to power line communication. Is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's wedded to power line communications, but it's a protocol that was developed specifically to support module level power electronics, or an organization that developed a protocol specifically to power line communications and MLPE devices.
Mm-hmm. But so is the FireRaptor pursuing SunSpec?
Yeah, so we are not, and the reason we are not is because we're not a module level power electronic device, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't fall under those guidelines or those certifications. We were compliant with SunSpec compliant inverters. We're essentially just a pass-through device to where, if the inverter was harvesting information from the panel, from the PV, it could still do so. It wouldn't necessarily see our component in the system. The only thing that it could not do is the inverter could not actually initiate a rapid shutdown on that pace, unless it was to cut power to the supply.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little more about the market. You've mentioned that you initially got traction with Outback, and Outback is, I think, going through a transformation. So I don't fully understand what they're up to. I know they're very well known for off-grid, but now they're going after some other markets. You mentioned Fronius, and that's I'm grateful to Chris Connell at Fronius for making the introduction to you guys. So thank you, Chris. what
Absolutely.
else, how else are you getting traction, and how can installers and developers find out about your products?
Yeah, so Tim, it's we're really trying to take lead in the educational arena. We recently joined NABCEP and attended their recent trade show and developed some training courses around that. We're also doing the same with SEI. We're doing the same with Midwest Renewable Association. So we're really looking at it from an educational piece, because once we start talking about the FireRaptor, a lot of people don't make the distinction about what makes it unique. And that is the fact, like I mentioned, that it lacks the power line communications, that it's just a solid state switch. And whenever I say it's a solid state switches have been around for almost 50, 60 years. And the B10 value there is over 30,000 hours of constant switching, you know. Um, Constant switching, right? So that's the type of reliability that we're looking at and that we're talking about. But compatibility wise, there's no electronic interference in the device, you know. So we're really looking at it from the educational piece to push us out into the market, whether it's solar power world, whether it's authoring different editorials or articles associated with that. That's where we're trying to go with it. The general overall marketing piece. Obviously, we're targeting commercial installers. A lot of your EPCs we're also engaged with, working to get the name out there, the brand out there, familiarity out there, and then obviously working back through the inverter manufacturers as well, so that everyone feels comfortable about the product and about using the product at the end of the day. So it's a point by point touch, but it's very collaborative in nature.
Sure. Yeah, and you sent me quite a wonderful deck. We're not going to show that deck beyond that one slide here today, but is there some place that deck can be found, or can I post it on a Dropbox that I can post in the show notes, or do you have a permalink that you can send to that document?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. We'll send you a permalink, or you can post it in a Dropbox. That's certainly for general distribution to the public.
Okay,
That was one of the NABCET presentations. Yes.
great. Well, what else should developers and installers be thinking about with regards to rapid shutdown? I think it's great to see additional products coming into the market and getting traction. The proof is in the pudding, right? We need more devices installed with track records so that there can be a clear signal one way or the other. And it is a double edge. We've had plenty of challenges with MLPEs ourselves, and so we're hungry for more and better solutions. But what else should we be looking for?
Yeah, Tim. What I typically communicate to everyone, right, is that whenever you go out and install, an array, right, it's the biggest brand that really takes the negative hit whenever the array doesn't function properly, right? It's yourself, Continental Energy Solutions, for example, and then potentially maybe the inverter manufacturer that you go with. Whether it's, no matter what MLPE device you use down the stream, it's what the people see and what they interact with that really takes the hit. And what I mean by that is that's the branding, that's the association. Man, God, I had a job with Continental. It didn't go right. The system isn't performing as advertised, and by just natural progression, that experience becomes perpetuated, right? So that experience is then communicated, to, let's say, their best friend, or let's say another prospective customer. So to me, that's the biggest hurdle that the market faces today, and something they have to be aware of is that, we all want the solar market to become mainstream, or what we call mainstream, right? I mean, I think that it's well on its way, and I think that, we're on the cusp of something great here. I mean, the market is just growing leaps and bounds year over year right now. And if you look at the next 5 to 10 years, man, to think about where we'll be. But in the same breath, we can't hamstring ourselves by by introducing arrays that don't perform as functioned into the market, because that's where you get the market, you get the lack of the market acceptance, essentially, because the people, the owners of these arrays, they're none the wiser, right? They just want a good customer experience at the end of the day. So to us, that's the important piece.
Yep, exactly. Well, is there anything else you'd like our listeners and viewers to know about IMO automation?
Yeah, guys, we've been around for almost 50 years as a company. Uh, Founded in 1972. We're one of the only companies that can say, yeah, we've been around longer than our 20-year warranty, and we'll be around longer. We'll be around 20 years from now to be able to support you in that warranty. But no, we appreciate the time today, Tim. For us, it's about getting the name out there, getting the brand out there, having the conversations. The solar market is a fascinating market, and it's one that we're thrilled to be a part of, and looking to continue our participation in it well into the future.
And how can people reach you, Joe?
Yeah, so I'm reachable via email at j.covington. That's the letter J. Covington, Covington, at imopc.com, or feel free to give me a ring, 404-357-2303. Be more than happy to have any discussions related to the FireRaptor or the general market, state of rapid shutdown, codes, whatever any one of your listeners may be interested in.
I'd like to remind our listeners that they can find all of our content at cesnrg.com/videos. Please hit the subscribe button. Share this content with your friends. That's the most powerful way to grow awareness of everything going on in the solar industry, solar technology, and news and information on the solar industry. We bring you 2 of these interviews every week, plus the Clean Power Hour with myself and John Weaver. So check that out at cesnrg.com/videos. Thank you so much, Joe Covington with IMO Automation. Really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm Tim Montague. Have a great day, everybody.